Look, we've got the American ambassador, actually, Mr. Patrick Gaspard, joining us live from our studios in the capital here in Pretoria, in South Africa. Mr. Gaspard, thank you very much for joining us today. Nice to have you with us. I see you wearing a beautiful red tie today. Is that a statement of intent?
Of course it is. It's a red, white, and blue day. There's nothing that I like more than elections in my country, and I wanted to celebrate it. And thank you for having me on your show on this historic day.
Now, you're the ambassador here in South Africa. You're the perfect man to tell us how important, we're asking this question to our viewers, how important is this election, not just to South Africa, but Southern Africa and in the wide African continent? How important is this election for us, and what do you think should we be on the lookout for?
Well, we all know that elections in the U.S. Always have implications for our friends and allies overseas, given the strength, the size of the U.S. economy, and the critical role that we play on regional peace and security issues and on global trade. So clearly it's important, particularly at a time when Americans are investing more in trade and development in Africa than we ever have before in our history. So it's of consequence. But let me just quickly add that irrespective of whoever wins the election tonight, our policies in sub-Saharan Africa will continue. I've spent a fair amount of time talking to Democrats and Republicans in our Congress and in our Senate, and all of them affirm the partnership, the engagement, the support that we have here on healthcare, education, and on economic development, and that will all continue.
So all the promises that Barack Obama came to make here when he visited us a couple of years ago regarding cooperation and the like, the African continent shouldn't be concerned that Donald Trump will come in and smash it all and say, let's start again.
You know, we have increased our development and trade resources here considerably over the last 8 years. And Republican senators like Jeff Flake from Arizona and Democratic senators like Chris Coons from Delaware have all come to South Africa. They've looked your leadership and your citizens in the eyes, and they've said they're going to continue with those programs. That's not to suggest that there aren't significant differences in domestic and foreign policy between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But we are a country that's governed by the strength of its institutions, the strength of our Constitution, and our enduring partnerships across the world.
Mr. Ambassador, I wanted to ask you about the image of America abroad. Now, we all know what Donald Trump has been preaching over the last year or so to the wider world, much to the concern of South Africans and people on the African continent, the views on minorities and women and the like. How do you think the world views America now in light of Donald Trump?
You know, I've been blessed and privileged to spend my career in the United States working on in governments and in campaigns and elections. I was blessed to have worked on President Obama's last 2 successful campaigns. And I always caution my friends in the media not to just look at our country in a snapshot moment, but to look at it over time. Overseas, there's still a sense that America continues to be the place to look towards if one is concerned about issues of inclusion and justice and equality. We have our profound challenges in the United States that we struggle to overcome every day, but we're open and transparent about those challenges and try to do all that we can to work towards perfecting our union. When I talk to my friends here in South Africa, there is concern about some of the xenophobia, some of the misogyny, some of the issues around discrimination based on religion that we've heard in this contest. The rhetoric has been quite heated indeed, but I always remind my friends that at the end of the day, because of the values in our constitutions, the value in our heart, we're going to continue to protect and defend all of those interests.
Ambassador, it's Elvis Preston here, also from the newsroom. Now, we've heard that more than 40 million Americans has already voted early, surpassing the 32 million that who casted their votes in the last elections 4 years ago. Does this suggest there's a lot more interest, basically, in this particular elections, and there's a lot more at stake here?
You know, there is a tremendous amount at stake, and we're seeing a passionate interest. If you look at the rally sizes for both of the candidates, if you look at the early vote turnout in places like Florida, Nevada, North Carolina, Clearly, there's something that's percolating on the ground, and we know that by the end of the day, over 120 million Americans will have expressed their preference for the presidency. So there's huge interest, big surge numbers, and that will have consequences not only for who wins the presidency, but who wins down ballot in the U.S. Senate and the Congress. We have to remember that in America, there are checks and balances on the presidency, so the outcome in the other legislative races are critical.
Now, Mr. Ambassador, I'm Jeff Kelly Lowenstein, visiting from Grand Valley State. Nice to meet you, sir.
You know, Jeff, it's great to hear that. It's great to hear that American accent on SABC.
Thank you. So my question is, I really appreciate what you were saying about some of the concern around some of the rhetoric that Mr. Trump has made during the campaign. What are you hearing from folks about his statements around the election being rigged, about his statement during the third debate? I'll let you know if I'll accept the results, and subsequently saying it won't be rigged if I win, but it will be if I don't. What sort of message, because that was quite a chilling, really, reminder about how strong our institutions have been, but this was really saying one of the two major candidates was really questioning the legitimacy of that 240-year tradition. What are you hearing about that?
You know, Jeff, I'm so glad that you asked that question. There's been a lot of concern and anxiety around statements being made about our election process being rigged and whether or not it's possible to cheat the system, particularly in this region where the United States has a long history of supporting democratic governance and helping to assure free and fair elections throughout sub-Saharan Africa, throughout the world. So it's a question that comes up frequently, and some of my friends worry that there's going to be an increased cynicism about our systems on the back end. But I can assure the viewers on SABC that our election system is absolutely strong. Nothing is foolproof anywhere, but because our elections are decentralized and all 50 states actually govern their own voting process, their own tabulation, it's very, very, very difficult, next to near impossible, to rig the system. Our system is absolutely strong, and one can be confident that when the votes are tallied this evening at the national level and at the state level as well, that there will be transparency, and the ultimate winner will indeed be the person who received the most votes.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to hang around a little bit. We're just going to take a little break. But before we take a break, I want to take some of our comments of our viewers and some of the question that you, our viewers, are asking with regard to the U.S. election. Of course, Jeff Kelly Lowenstein is with us in studio. If you've got any questions for him, send it in right now. We ask of you, how important is the U.S. elections for South Africa? We're also running a poll that says, should America dump Trump? And right now, 50% of you say, yeah, get rid of him. Anyhow, let's take a look at some of the comments coming in. As you can imagine, the world of celebrity is right on top all over this election. Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Madonna, they've all rallied behind Hillary Clinton as the U.S. They're preparing to elect a new president today. The polling booth will open at 1 p.m. That's in about just over 3 hours' time on Tuesday today. Now, A-list star power is part of the massive get out to the vote operation that's taking place in the U.S. Yeah, some of those comments that are coming in. This one from Lady Gaga. Hillary, we love you because we know that you know we are stronger together. I'm with her, the hashtag that she's putting forward. Vote for Hillary, she says. There's a picture of Hillary Clinton. She tweeted us off. In America, we build bridges, not walls. Let's go out and prove that love trumps hate. Strong stuff there from Hillary Clinton as she goes to the polls today. The Donald says, today we're going to win the great state of Michigan and we're going to win back the White House. Thank you, he says to Michigan there, MI. Of course, let's hope that Donald accepts this, that he accepts this defeat. Right now, the Ipsos poll stands at 90% chance for Hillary to win it. I don't know if it's that much of a landslide. I can tell you it's always going to be a lot closer than you think. Don't forget what happened with George W. Bush in Florida a couple of years ago. Anyhow, let's take a quick look at the front pages from around the globe as we go into the U.S. elections now. In Europe, the Times reports that a surge in women and Hispanic early voters has left Donald Trump facing an uphill struggle even before polling stations opened today. The most unpredictable U.S. election in memory reaches its climax. Then, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post says, campaigning for over 600 days and spending over $6 billion, Hillary Rodham Clinton and Donald J. Trump have nothing left to do but wait, as Americans finally head to the polls to choose which among them will be the next commander-in-chief. Finally, in Iran, yes, let's go there. The Tehran Times reports that Iran will today sign a deal with France as total for the development of gas production at the South Paris field in the Persian Gulf. That's according to the Iranian Oil Ministry, and it can tell us where their priorities are on voting day today in the U.S. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion around what has become the showdown between crooked Hillary and dodgy Donald. Don't go away.
Macro is lending a helping hand with big festive season savings that'll move you, like the Totem 16-inch or 20-inch Mojo bikes for only $10.99. Save 200 Rand. Or save 200 Rand on the Bounce King 10-foot trampoline, now only $24.99. And zip away on a Zingo X100 electric scooter for $1,999. Save 300 Rand. Share in these and other big festive savings for home, for business, for life. Only at Macro. Big on life.
Yeah, welcome back. We're dealing with the American election today, U.S. election 2016. It's Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. We've got the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, Mr. Gaspard, is with us in our capital studio in Pretoria. Nelson Mandela behind him there in the picture. Welcome back. Nice to have you with us. I know you have to go in a couple of minutes, Mr. Ambassador, but just quickly, can you outline for us a little bit what the world would look like under Hillary Clinton and under Donald Trump? In your opinion?
Actually, I actually won't do that because not only am I in a nonpartisan role here, but I think it's very, very difficult to make that kind of forecast. What I will say is that both candidates in the course of this election have asked very important questions about the nature of our trade relationships with other countries and whether or not average Americans are benefiting from that trade. And what we all need to do together to grow our infrastructure and our manufacturing base. That has real implications for allies overseas, and we're going to have to work through those consequences. But if I could, with your permission, I want to quickly go back to the question that Jeff asked me about the integrity of our voting systems. I was a little timid in responding to Jeff's question. It's actually unprecedented that a major party candidate in America would question those systems and that processes. And the last thing that we need is to have any increased cynicism about our government, about our campaigns and our elections. As you all have proven recently in South Africa, institutions matter, and we need to do all that we can to enhance the scaffolding of those institutions. It was outrageous for a major party candidate to continue to question the integrity of our system, and I know that most Americans have faith in our openness, our transparency, and our ability to come together after elections to continue to assure the strength of our democracies. So thank you for having me on.
Before you go, Mr. Ambassador, I want to ask you one last thing. I want to talk about this campaign and what we've seen as the rise of dirty politics, if you can call it that. The kind of rhetoric that's come out of this election hasn't always been positive. There's been a lot of name calling and a lot of underhandedness, if you can call it that.
It's interesting to me. I've worked on many campaigns and elections, and every couple of years we talk about the rise of negative campaigning and how intense things are. Things were pretty bad when Thomas Jefferson ran for president as well against Adams. So let's just be clear that the rhetoric is always intense, always heated. There's always polarization. I think that some of that has been worsened by social media, and there's a coarseness in our politics across the globe now. That's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, most people approach the ballot box with real aspiration. They're trying to improve the lives of their children and their children's children. They're worried about the environment and education and health care. And let's remember that that's the majority. That's not the exception. And we should pay more attention to those voices and those hearts and ambitions.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for coming in and being so frank with us. Yes, it is election day, and those polls will be well apart today. Thank you for joining us. That's Patrick Gaspard. He's the current U.S. ambassador to South Africa, and he says we shouldn't be too worried about what's coming out of this election. That's part of the campaign. It's a dirty game. Jeff, just before Elvis introduces something, do you agree with that kind of sentiment, or has it been especially nasty this time around?
Well, I think it has been particularly nasty this campaign, Yevon. And to me, what the difference between, say, 2008, President Obama's first campaign, is that both candidates really focused very highly, Clinton and Trump, on waging a very negative personal set of attacks. And a lot of rallies that Mr. Trump had, people would be chanting, lock her up, lock her up. Similar kind of very negative things. President Obama had an incident in North Carolina the other day. So I do think the ambassador is right that there is a history of really contentious politics